Okay. Okay, good morning. We are beginning today, like no one's showing their face. We are beginning chapter 18, which is the beginning of a new topic in Tanya. Up till now, the Alter Rebbe has been discussing based on the pasuk, which is the introduction of Tanya, which is what Moshe Rabbeinu told the nation of Israel, which is Ki karev elecha hadavar ma'od b'ficha ubelvavcha la'asosoi, that it is very near and accessible and easy for you, this thing, which is this thing, to be able to love and fear Hashem to the extent that it will affect your thoughts, speech, and actions, which is b'ficha ubelvavcha la'asosoi. And up till now, the Alter Rebbe has been explaining how either a person can use his intellect to produce said emotions. You know what? I'm just gonna I forgot to mute everybody. 1 minute. Okay, so either a person is able to use his intellect to meditate and reflect on the greatness of Hashem and thereby develop or produce full-fledged emotions of love and fear of God, which are necessary for the mitzvahs to rise up. They are the wings of the mitzvahs, love and fear of Hashem. That is one type of method in developing love and fear of Hashem. Then the Alter Rebbe went on to speak about something called a tevuna, which is a conviction of the heart, an intellectual emotion that does not let anyone off the hook, meaning even if you, because of the shayresh of your neshama, the source of your soul, or because of your intellectual capacities, for example, you are not able to develop or produce this love and fear of Hashem through your own capabilities, but at the very least you have a strong feeling, an intellectual emotion, a tevuna, a conviction that it is important to do so. Hashem helps you, and he joins that conviction with the mitzvahs to enable them to rise, and that is one way of using the emotions of love and fear to enable the mitzvahs to rise. In other words, it's not a developed fully emotion, but it is enough to have this conviction. And now the Alter Rebbe goes into a new topic, which will take us from chapter 18 through chapter 24, a different kind of love, which does not require the intellect at all, or any intellectual capacity. And the Alter Rebbe brings this topic because he questions the word in the pasuk that Moshe Rabbeinu told the nation of Israel, that it is very near to you, it is accessible, it is easy, it is relevant. Ki karev elecha hadavar ma'od. Not only is it relevant, is it easy, but it is very relevant. It is very easy. It is very practical, said Moshe Rabbeinu. And the Alter Rebbe questions this word, ma'od, because it doesn't seem to be easy, never mind very easy, right? So because of this word, ma'od, that it's very easy, right? In other words, this means for a person who is either limited in his knowledge of Hashem and neither has a conviction, even he is able to keep Torah and mitzvahs, study Torah, fulfill the commandments of Hashem with love and fear. Even this person, because of a special hidden love, which each and every single Jew possesses, which is an inheritance of every Jew from our patriarch Avraham Avinu. So now the Alter Rebbe introduces a whole new concept. The concept of not having really to use your intellect, but having to awaken or reveal a love which is already there, which every Jew possesses. No meditation is required. to arouse it, and therefore it is accessible to each and every person, every Jew. So this chapter really begins this topic of what is called Ahava Mesuteres, the hidden love that every Jew has for Hashem. And in order to begin understanding this, we have to understand firstly the origin of this love. How is it in an inheritance? And where is there an element also of fear or awe or reverence of Hashem within it? Why does it need to have an ingredient? It's interesting. Why does this love need to have the ingredient of fear? Because the Alter Rebbe says that this love is enough to help the mitzvahs to rise. And we know that in order for you to be motivated, firstly, to do positive mitzvahs and to avoid negative commandments, to avoid sinning, you need both love and fear. Not only love is enough. Remembering that love is a selfish emotion sometimes. Yes, we may feel selfless love towards somebody else, but it feels good. So that's the selfish component of this love. And that's why fear of Hashem is also necessary. The fear means accepting upon oneself the authority of Hashem, the yoke of heaven. But over here, we're talking about a hidden love, which has a component, must have a component of fear within it, because it also serves to both motivate us to fulfill positive commandments and to avoid sinning, and also serves as wings of the mitzvahs, and mitzvahs need two wings, love and fear. So although we are talking in the next few chapters mainly about love, there is also an element of fear. And we have to understand this, and the Alter Rebbe will go into greater detail. So to start off with this topic, the Alter Rebbe says that in order for us to understand that we inherited something from our patriarchs, from our avos, we have to understand the godliness of our patriarchs and how they connected to Hashem. So our sages tell us that ha'avos Hein Hamerkava. The patriarchs are a chariot, or in colloquial language, a vehicle of God. The patriarchs were a vehicle of God's will, which means that, like how you get into a car and the car goes where you want it to go, that was how the patriarchs were related to Hashem. They did not have a will of their own. They were simply a vehicle for fulfilling the will of Hashem. And because of that, they merited to bring down for all subsequent generations the souls of the Jews from all 10 attributes of Hashem, from all 10 spheres of Hashem in all 4 worlds. This was their reward, so to speak, that all their generations that come after them would have a connection to them, to their souls, and in all levels. When we say in all levels, we refer to both the attributes, which is the spheres, because each soul may come from a different level. We don't know the origins of our souls. We can provide garments for our souls, which is a different topic, but we don't know the source of our souls, but souls come from different places. Not only are they connected with the 10 attributes, they are also sourced from the 4 spiritual worlds, which are Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. So the Avos, being that they were our patriarchs, our source, right? And they were a vehicle to Hashem, for Hashem's will, that means that they merited to have a connection with all subsequent souls that in the Jewish nation. A vehicle of godliness means that was their essence. It was not something secondary. You know how we we're people and also we fulfill Hashem's will? No, the Avos, this was their entire essence. And that's why even the most sinful of people, that are born to the Jewish nation, or that become sinful, or for whatever reason, they are able to be, through their connection to the patriarchs, they are able to bear children who have a connection to the patriarchs. And the union of these sinful people, right, can bring down a soul. Now, listen to this, the way the Alter Rebbe explains it. A soul which is sourced from a very lowly level. The low level that the Alter Rebbe describes is a nefesh, because we know the soul has 5 levels, right? Nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, yechida. In this chapter, the Alter Rebbe refers to nefesh, ruach, neshama, because chaya, yechida have to do with higher spheres, but the nefesh would be the lowest level of the neshama. So they are able to bring down a nefesh from malchus, which is the lowest sphera, right? We know there are 10 attributes, so the lowest one is malchus, from asiya. So it's asiya is the lowest level of worlds, which is our world. So the lowest level of a soul would be a level of a soul called nefesh, the malchus, the asiya. A nefesh, which comes from malchus, from the world of asiya. Now, before you get all confused and say, why is this relevant to me, right? The reason is, and just to explain, that when a soul sourced from Hashem, a soul which is a chelek elokam imal, a soul which is a part of Hashem, comes down to this world, this soul cannot just come from Hashem and appear in this world. The soul has to go through a process called Seder Hishtalshelus. Every creation goes through this process, but particularly we are referring to souls now. They have to go through the 4 worlds plus the 10 spheres before coming into this world. Now, here's something very, very interesting about the spheres and the spiritual worlds. Every sphera contains all the spheres above. So, like those stacking cups, which are toys for children, or babushka dolls that, one stacks into the other, like they all fit in. That is the spheres. So the lowest sphera actually contains all the highest spheres until the highest sphera, which is Chachma. So it is all inclusive. So even if a soul comes from a very, very lowly place, which is Nefesh, which is Malchus, which is Asiya, it actually is connected still to the very, very highest level of Hashem, which is Chachma of Atzilus, the highest sphera and the highest world. So again, if you're confused, what is important for us to know? That even lowly souls, the lowliest of souls, have a direct connection with the highest, loftiest level of Hashem. So therefore, even when sinful people beget children, and those children may be sourced from a very low, quote unquote, level of Hashem, that low level has a potential to reach higher because it is still connected through this rope towards Hashem on the highest level. And that is, by the way, and Alter Rebbe explains in this chapter, that is, by the way, the reason that sometimes a very lofty soul is given to a lowly person. Sometimes the children of a Russia will become a tzaddik. The child of a Russia will become a tzaddik. And sometimes we see this practically. We see both that very lofty people have children who are the opposite of lofty, and sometimes we see people who are lowly merit to have children who are on a very high level spiritually. The reason for this is because Klippa, our friend Klippa, that thing that conceals godliness, has a hope that this holiness will continue to give life to Klippa. So therefore, the source of the soul that goes to lowly people is sometimes very, very high, because Klippa's nourishment comes from holiness. So if they grab onto a very holy soul, the hope is that the Klippa will get more nourishment. But the flip side of this is that since it is a very great neshama, it can overcome its circumstances, upbringing, surrounding environment, and return to holiness. So therefore, the likelihood is great of this soul becoming a tzaddik or even a Benoni, right? Even though it was born to unlikely parents. And that the Alter Rebbe brings as an aside, as actually an introduction to explain to us how, since all the souls, even the most lowly of souls, are connected to the patriarchs and are connected to the sphere of Chachma, which is the highest level of attributes, we have to understand what Chachma is and what actually comes from Chachma. So Chachma, of the 10 attributes, right, comes from God's wisdom. That's number one. So our wisdom is connected to Hashem's wisdom. Definitely from the divine soul we are talking about, right? We are not talking about the animal soul now. We are talking about the divine, godly soul. Now, Chachma, we know that there are three intellectual spheres: Chachma, Bina, and Das. So Chachma, Bina, and Das is the process of intelligence. So the very first level, which is Chachma, is not really the understanding. There's no logic involved. Chachma doesn't understand anything yet, but it is open to knowing. That then develops into Bina, when a person understands and starts having a logical understanding of the Chachma, of the concept. But Chachma is humble. Chachma is curious about what it doesn't know. Chachma knows that it doesn't know, but is very open to knowing. It is the source of intellect. It is the source of seichel and wisdom. It is also the bridge between not understanding and understanding, not knowing and knowing. It is the seat of humility or bittul, nullification towards God. Because the process of knowing and beginning to have knowledge is humbling. Sometimes it takes humility to say, I don't know, but I know that there's something that I don't know. And that is Chachma. Since it is the source of knowledge, it is above rational thought. Rational thought begins in Bina. That's when you say, oh, wow, let me see if I can begin understanding this. And Das, of course, is the integration. So Chachma is Lamaila mehahavana v'hasaga, above understanding. Now, Hashem is available and revealed to the soul at the level of Chachma. Why? Because Hashem is not knowable. Hashem is not available to Bina in the same way. But your soul at the level of Chachma knows Hashem because it's above understanding. It's above rational thought. On the level of Bina, when you begin involving your limited intellect to understand something, Hashem, the all-knowing Hashem, the source of knowledge, is not as available on the level of Bina. But on the level of Chachma, that is the humility of the soul, that is the Chachma of the neshama, that is the wisdom of the soul. Chachma is made up of two words. The word Chachma is koyach ma. What is this potential? It's not yet enclosed in intelligence, in rational thought. which is why Hashem, who we cannot comprehend, is enclosed in Chachma. And this is the level where Emunah is found, faith. So on the one hand, Chachma, our wisdom, the source of our intellectual understanding, transcends comprehension and is therefore able to be the recipient of the light of Hashem. And it is also the essence of intelligence, so it's connected to the lower spheres. It's like the bridge, right? And therefore does have an effect, and this is where this parak is coming to, it does have an effect on thought, speech, and action, which are even lower than the attributes. And that's why it doesn't matter the level of a Jew, because at the level of Chachma, every Jew is the same. It is on the level of Bina, which is intellectual capacity, that then it starts differing. So maybe different people cannot use their understanding in the same way to develop or produce a love and fear of Hashem. But if they access the level of Chachma, where the neshama unites with Hashem on a level beyond logic, it doesn't matter your level. It doesn't matter into which family you are born. It doesn't matter how many mitzvahs you keep. On that level, that is the level of faith in Hashem beyond logic or understanding. And everybody is able to access that level. It doesn't make a difference your level. So all Jews, even if they have no knowledge of Hashem, of Hashem's greatness, believe in Hashem. Because faith, emunah, represents the ability to grasp what the intellect cannot. Faith is above intelligence, right? So when we hear expressions such as pure faith or simple faith, and if you remember, this is discussed at greater length in Shar HaYichud VeHaEmunah, the gate of, the next part of Tanya, which is the gate of faith, right? Pure faith and simple faith is not so simple, actually, but it is on a very, very high level, which has not been diluted or corrupted by our intellect. And that's why it's able to be pure. You see, when we start trying to understand Hashem, trying to understand the existence of Hashem, then we have a mishmash. It's not pure faith, right? Which is actually why the purpose of later on in Tanya, why we learn Shar HaYichud VeHaEmunah, we kind of like distill the two. We try and understand what we can, and then the rest is pure faith, right? But all of this is to say that this is the reason why every Jew, no matter his level, can sacrifice, is able to sacrifice his or her life for the sake of Hashem, al kiddush Hashem, even if they are unaware of Hashem's greatness. It's a spiritual gene which is connected to and inherited from the Avos, the patriarchs. So the love of Hashem, which is this hidden love that we have as an inheritance from our patriarchs, comes from this level of Chachma. When we learn, or we meditate, or we reflect, or involve our own intelligence, the knowledge results in an emotion. Yes, we can produce an emotion, but this emotion is limited. It's not absolute because it's our limited intelligence which has meditated, reflected, and thought about Hashem's greatness. But the love of Hashem, which is sourced in Chachma, above understanding, and which is because of Hashem's presence without reasoning, is absolutely true and complete. And in the next chapter, the Alter Rebbe will develop this idea and talk about what does this love actually strive for, and where's the element of fear? But this is an introduction to this hidden love of Hashem that we can all access. We can all access. It is a love higher than anything that we can produce through our intellect. It is a love that anybody can access, even a lowly person, because we are all connected to the patriarchs and we have all inherited this love on the level of Chachma from our patriarchs. Okay, does this sound complicated? Any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
So I understand the concept, this high level that everyone can access. But what about the evil Jews out there that are doing so many terrible things? Like how how does that happen if they really like my husband always says you have to look at see if they're really Jewish. But um yeah.
Okay, so it's a very good question, and the Alter Rebbe will expand on this topic, but just to answer it a bit, even Jews who are evil, when things become very clear to them, they won't negate Hashem. They are evil right now because it is not clear to them about the existence of Hashem. So to give an example to explain this, I see Shalamis is shaking her head. I'll get to you in Shalom. I'll get back to you. Um, if you were in a building on the fifth floor and there's a window, you wouldn't just jump out that window, right? Because why would someone jump out of a window, right? Unless obviously they are not well. But if there was a fire raging in that building and the only choice you had to be saved from this fire was to jump out the window, you wouldn't hesitate. You would jump, right? Because it became very clear to you at that moment that's what you have to do. You have to jump out of the window. There's clarity. Save life, jump out window, right? Another day, absolutely doesn't make sense to jump out the window, right? So a person, and we all have free choice every single day. So even though every single Jew has the potential to be Meiser Nefesh, to sacrifice their lives, Al Kiddush Hashem, at the end of the day, they still have free choice. But we have many, many examples of Jews who were very far or sinful, who either did tshuva in a moment, right? We have a very famous Tana in the Gemara, who did tshuva in a moment. We have Jews, even very, very recently, Jews who were assimilated, perhaps living with a non-Jew. When it came to negating Hashem, they chose to die instead of. We even have of like converting, let's say. We even have an example. I think one of the hostages said that they threatened him with who knows what if he wouldn't convert to Islam, and he said, "No, I'm a Jew." Now, this was not a person who kept Torah mitzvahs, and he was willing to die rather than do that, right? To convert. We have examples in recent history. A journalist called Daniel Pearl, who was a very assimilated Jew married to a non-Jew, who was kidnapped by terrorists in Pakistan. And when asked what his last words were before dying, he said, "I am a Jew." I don't remember the exact thing, but he said, "I'm a Jew. I'm the son of Jews. My parents founded the city of Bnei Brak or something in Israel," something like that. So there are moments in a person's life, whether or not they um, have a knowledge of Hashem or whether or not they are sinning, which comes from this level of the hidden love, which comes from the level of Chachma, which all of a sudden gets activated and makes things clear for them. And in that moment, they do not negate Hashem. And they will die al Kiddush Hashem, expressing their love for Hashem. So it doesn't make a difference. There's a level of connection between a Jew and Hashem, which is not dependent on the mitzvahs that they do or the sins that they do. It is a level which is just is. And it is on this level of chachma that a Jew is connected to Hashem. Now, a lot of times it's hidden. That's why it's called hidden love. Majority of the time it's hidden. And that's why we can act like we act, and evil people can act like they can act, and Yidden who are very, very far can do the most sinful of things because it's hidden. But this is the point. It's able to be activated independent of your level. And that's our inheritance from our patriarchs. Make sense? At least more sense. Okay, Shalamis, what are you shaking your head about?
Um, I'm not going to talk about what I was shaking my head about. That's like a long story, but I just want
Okay.
to understand why a lot of times this connection with Hashem is emphasized through Mr. Nefesh. Why does it have to be death in order to show love and connection?
It
Most
doesn't
of
have to, it doesn't have to be. We're going to learn in Tanya, it doesn't have to
Well,
be.
this class was very heavy, and the point was at the moment of truth, person will die rather than. And it's not the first time or the second time.
No, so 1 second. No, the Alter Rebbe says this is the possibility. But then what do? We take this knowledge of clarity, right? Why do we sin? Why does anybody sin? Right? When you sin, you are negating Hashem. You're not saying that Hashem is your life and Hashem is your source. You are negating Hashem by sinning. You are going contrary to Hashem's will, right? So how does one get oneself to prevent, how does one prevent oneself from sinning? By getting the clarity that a person would have when faced with that choice, live or die or negate Hashem. Right? We don't have to wait for that situation. The Alter Rebbe is giving us an extreme example, but we don't have to die because nowadays, Mesiras Nefesh is Mesiras Haratzon. We are able to, we don't have to die Al Kiddush Hashem. We have to live Al Kiddush Hashem by doing Hashem's will. That's in very brief. And how do we do that? When things become clear. So we're going to see throughout Tanya how the Alter Rebbe gives us different techniques in making those things clear. When it's clear as light to you, as if a fire is raging behind you, that Hashem is your entire life and that Hashem is the entire existence of this universe, there's no possibility to sin. You wouldn't want to negate Hashem.
Mm.
Does that make more sense?
It still feels like mm, coming from like strictness, not coming from. But I guess this is what it is. It's not.
You're saying it seems like it comes from fear and not love?
Yes, fear of losing the connection, fear of
But fear of losing the connection is connected to love because you want to be connected. Wanting to be connected is from love. The fear of losing the connection is the fear component within the love.
mhm.
Because why do you want to be connected to Hashem? Because you love him.
No, but we said that it's above understanding, so we don't.
Right, right, right. So all this that we talk about is very intellectually involved and we try and produce it, but there is a level that everybody has that is not connected to logical understanding. And that's the level of emunah and pure, pure love of Hashem, which the Alter Rebbe will speak about in the next few chapters of how to access that. Everyone has it.
I just want to say that when you talk to people who completely not from and like bedavka, like they don't want to. If you tell them you really have love to Hashem, it's really making them angry.
No, so sometimes you don't have to tell them that. Sometimes something awakens that love. Like we don't know what is the catalyst to awaken the love for every single person. Sometimes it's a person witnessing a miracle. Sometimes it's a person hearing a nigun. Sometimes it's a person
And doing a mitzvah,
doing a mitzvah, being right. You awaken that love by offering a person tefillin on the streets of whatever, you know?
right? Mm. Hmm.
It
Yeah.
is a deep concept, and we're going to go through it in the next few chapters, which is why it's not just one chapter. The Alter Rebbe does take 6 chapters to explain it.
Hmm. I don't know if you want to record it or not, but when I was shaking my head, what comes to mind is there were certain people in KGB that became infamous for how many people
Yes, because
What
yeah,
the
it's a
fuck?
famous question. It's a famous question. Everybody, the answer is that everybody has just at the end of the day. They are capable of tshuva. They are capable of having a love of Hashem and chose not to.
There is a story, however, yesterday I heard from Rabbi Ashkenazi about Marukva that he fell in love with a certain woman who was very, very beautiful, but she was married. And since Marukva was extremely, extremely rich, he was able to afford anything. And he became sick from love. And the doctor said if he's not going to have anything to do with this woman, he might just lose his life. But of course, nobody allowed it. And then this lady's, her name was Hannah. Her husband got in prison for some not payments of some sort. And she kept on coming to the prison, asking him to like keep up his spirits, but he was negative about it. He said, "Oh, you are just coming here for nothing. You don't care about me. If you did care about me, go to Marukva, borrow money, pay my debts." And now she's in between two fires. Eventually, she did go to Marukva, and it's like like the apple is falling into your palm. And she explained to him why she came. He gave her, as they say, a triple check, not just one, but he wanted, something in extent, an exchange for it.
Exchange.
And right. And she told him something. And it doesn't say in the Gemara what she said, but he let her go. When she came to her husband, he didn't believe her. And when he got out of prison, he didn't believe her still. And people were accusing Marukva that he did something with this woman, until Rabbi Akiva said, "Don't you see the candle on top of his head? There's like light of Hashem on top of his head." And I don't remember who is the commentary, but he said, so what did this woman tell him? What did this woman tell Marukva when he wanted to seduce her? And it says that she said to him, this is not exact words, but you could buy a Gan Eden, like by refusing your doing whatever you want. Instead of that, you could buy a Gan Eden right now. And this worked.
So
I
maybe
think
that was his moment of clarity, in other
this
words.
was his moment of clarity. So I'm always looking for this kind of like wow story, moment, inspiration, explanation of Emuna to
Emuna doesn't have an explanation.
no, but to talk about it and to give things as tools to people, like how somebody else deal with it. And honestly, talking about Mesiras Nefesh usually makes people very sad.
Right. I understand. I understand what you're saying, but people were Moser Nefesh for Hashem out of love. We don't have to die
Right.
nowadays. We can live out of love for Hashem. And there are different ways to awaken that love
Mm-hmm.
and have our moment of clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes Hashem helps and Hashem gives a person a wake-up call in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And for everyone, it might be different. But it's not based in logic. That's the point. It's not based in our own limited intellectual faculties. It's based on the connection with Hashem and the Avos. Yeah, it's a deep topic. So fasten your seatbelt because next few
Right.
chapters are this topic,
Yeah.
and it's a beautiful topic because it doesn't leave anyone behind. In other words, the song "No Jew Will Be Left Behind."
Right.
Every yid has a portion in this inheritance. Doesn't matter where they come from, doesn't matter who their parents are, doesn't matter the level of their neshama. Every single Jew is a son of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. I think even there's a video of the Rebbe saying something like that when someone said to the Rebbe that someone who's very far, and he said, no, he's not far. He's the son of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. There's no such thing as far,
Mm.
right?
The
I don't
spoke in
remember.
Russian on like Omer parade, and he
Yeah, that also. Yeah, that
he
also.
are the children of
Yeah. No, but this that I'm referring to, the story of the Rebbe when he corrected somebody when he said, "Oh, this is a Jew that's very far," and whatever. And he
uh,
said, "There's no such thing. How can he be far if he's a child of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? He has that spiritual gene, just like every other Jew as well."
unfortunately in our time it's sometimes very hard to differentiate between.
It's hidden. That's the point. This love is called Ava Misuteres. It's hidden,
Yeah.
and that's the point, to uncover it.
I'm saying it's a very humbling experience when you see people who come from super frum backgrounds and people who come from no frum backgrounds, and they're about the same search of their own um, purpose and neshama search.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Hannah.
Okay, ladies, see you next week.
Thank you.